Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to show you how to cut and sew a long dress with a ruffle cold shoulder sleeve. So I have here, this fabric is crepe, it's 2 yards and 9 inches. So I will be cutting the gown using my basic bodice pattern for center front and for the back, center back. I'll be using this pattern just to trace the armhole and the neckline. That's all. So if you want to learn how to draw this pattern, I'll be leaving a link at the description box. Now this gown, you can cut this gown using different method. You can use a-line method, you can use a bias method, that is a flame method. Okay, so if you're using a flame method, make sure that you have enough fabric, let's say 4 yards, and make sure the length of your fabric is up to 60 or 62, so you can have the fullness at the lower part of the gown. Okay, so if you are using the bias method, your gown is going to have a joining at the waist, and also you can add a zipper allowance at the back of your gown, or you can just open the neckline, let's say 5 to 6 inches, for to enable you add a attach button to your neckline. Okay, so for me, I'll be using a-line method. My gown is not going to have any joining, and my gown is not going to have any zipper allowance. I'll be opening the neckline, let's say 5 inches to 6 inches, and I'll attach button to the neckline to enable me wear it easily. Okay, so that's that. So I also have a black fabric I'll be using to for my detachable belt. The gown is going to have a detachable belt, and I'll also be using this fabric to do the ruffle around the sleeve. Okay, so it's I think it's up half yard. Yes, it's half yard. And I also have this fabric I cut out in case the fabric is not enough for my pocket. I'll be attaching the pocket to the gown. It's going to be an invisible pocket. So I brought this fabric in case the material is not enough for the fabric, for the pocket, I can use this. So that's that. So let's get to work. Okay, I've gone ahead to fold my fabric into two. I'm cutting the front first. So I've gone ahead to trace my armhole. And the next thing I'm going to do is to take my measurements. So on my chest line, I'm going to mark my bust measurement. The bust I'm working with is 40 divided by 4 will give me 10 plus 1 inch is, because it's going to be a free gown kind of. There's no zipper allowance at the back, so I need to add ease to it so I'll be able to wear it. So I have 11, that is 10 plus 1 inch is will give me 11 plus 1.5 seam allowance will give me 12.5. So I'll mark 12.5 here. So the waistline I'm working with is the waistline I'm working with is 17 and a half. So I'm going to mark 17 and a half. The pattern waistline is 18 and a half. So I'll go up by 17 and a half and mark. So my waist measurement is 34 divided by 4 will give me 8.5 plus 1 inch is will give me 9.5 plus 1.5 seam allowance will give me 11 inches. So I'm going to mark 11 inches. So at this point, I'm going to remove my pattern because I've already traced out the armhole. So I'll remove my pattern now. Let me trace my shoulder slants, the neckline. Okay. So I'll remove my pattern. and this is where I have my half length. So I'll go down by 8 inches and mark for my hip depth. The hip I'm working with is 44 divided by 4 will give me 11 inches plus 1 inch is will give me 12 plus 1.5 seam allowance will give me 13.5. So I'll mark 13.5 here. Now for the down part of the gown, that's the hemline, you can now add you can do 13.5. That's what the measurement you have as your hip, you add 5 inches to it. That's what you'll be marking at the hemline. But if you don't want that, you can increase to maybe 18 to 20 depending on what you want. Okay, so for me the hemline I'm working with is 20 inches. Okay, I hope you're not confused. Okay, let me repeat myself. I said for the hemline you can use your hip measurement. My hip measurement here is my hip measurement is 44 inches divided by 4 will give me 11 inches plus 1 inch seam ease will give me 12 inches plus 1.5 seam allowance will give me 13.5. So if you want, you can now add 5 inches to that 13.5 and use it as your hemline measurement. But if you don't want, you can increase to any amount that you want. Now I'll be working with 20 inches as my hemline. Okay, so this is my hip measurement. So at the hemline, I will measure 20 inches. Number one. So this is my 20 inches here. So the next thing I'm going to do is to connect the points. So I'm connecting the points, chest line to the waist, waist to the hip, hip to the hemline as the down part of the gown. So I'll go ahead and cut it out. So for the hemline, I won't be leaving the edge looking sharp. I will go up by 2 inches and I will connect back to the hemline. So when I'm done cutting, I will do that. So when I get to my waistline, I'm going to notch because that's where my pocket, I'm going to be placing my pockets. So this is my waistline. I'll notch. So for the neckline, I'm going to alter the neckline because what I have here is 2 inches by 2 inches. So I'm going to alter it. I will increase to 4 inches. Okay. My shoulder is 15 inches. Divide by 2 will give me 7.5. So I will increase my neckline to 4 inches. Okay, I'm done. You can see. So what I'm going to do next is to go up from my hemline. I will go up by 2 inches because I don't want the side of my gown looking very sharp. So I'll go up by, you can do 1.5. Okay, let's do 1.5. I'll do 1.5 and I will connect back to the hemline. can see what I'm doing. So this is 1.5. I'll connect back to the hemline. So I'm going to cut it off now. Okay. So for the neckline, I'll increase by 1.5. I have 2.5 by 2.5. So I'm going to go down by 1.5 and I'll go in by 1.5. I will connect and cut it off. So this is 1.5 and this is 1.5. Okay. So I'm done with the front. Next, I'm going to go over to the back. I'll cut the back. I'll come back and show you. Uh, I will show you. Okay, I will show you why cutting the back so you can see everything. Okay, for the back, I'll be using my back pattern to cut it. The next thing I'm going to do is to fold in this zipper allowance at the pattern. You can see the pattern has a zipper allowance, so I'm going to fold it in this way because I don't need it. Then I'll place on my fabric. Next, I'm going to trace the armhole line this way. And I'll trace the shoulder. The neckline. I'll still alter the neckline because it's a bit high. So I'm going to place my bust measurements. My bust is 40 inches divided by 4 will give me 10 inches plus 1 inch is will give me 11 inches plus 1.5 seam allowance will give me 12.5. So on the chest line, I'm going to mark my 12.5 and this is it. So for the half length for the back, I'll be working with 17 and half. So the pattern have a half length of 16 and half, so I'll increase to 1 inch. I'll increase by 1 inch to get my 17 and half. So this is it. At that point, I'm going to mark my waist measurement. The waist measurement I'm working with is 34 inches. Divided by 4 will give me 8.5 plus 1 inch is will give me 9.5 plus 1.5 seam allowance will give me 11 inches. So I'm going to mark my 11 inches here. So at that point, I'll go down and mark my hip depth. The hip depth I'm working with is 8 inches. 8 inches, and this is the 8 inches point. That 8 inches, I'm going to take my round hip measurement. The round hip measurement I'm working with is 44 divided by 4 will give me 11 inches plus 1 inch is will give me 12 plus 1.5 seam allowance will give me 13.5. So I'm going to mark 13.5 this way. Now remember for the fronts, I use 20 inches the hemline. So I'm going to be using the same 20 inches at the hemline of my back. And I will mark. And this is it. I hope you can see what I'm doing. Okay, this is 20 inches. The next thing I'm going to do is to connect the points. At this point, I don't need my pattern again, so I'm going to remove it. So I'll connect the bust to the waist to the hip, and hip to the hemline. So I'm going to use my long ruler to do that. I'm going to start cutting. So for the neckline, remember I said I'm going to alter the neckline. The neckline here is 2.5 by half inch. So I'm going to increase the width by 4 inches and the depth I'm going to increase by 1 inch. And this is it. So I'm going to connect the points now. I hope you can see it. Okay. Next, I'm going to open the center back. I'll mark one, I will place my tape on that neckline and I'll go down by 5 inches. And I will mark. So I'll open the center back by 5 inches. Okay. So this is it. So this will enable me wear my gown without struggle. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to cut out the back piece. And this is it. Please remember to notch your waist so you know where to place the pockets. Okay, I'm done cutting the back. As you can see, I've gone ahead to notch my waist to enable me know where I'll be placing my pockets. So coming to the down, where is the hemming part of the gown. Remember to go up by 1.5 from the side and you connect back to the hemline. This will enable your gown not to be looking pointed by the side. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to do is to cut the sleeve. Remember that the sleeve is a cold shoulder sleeve. So what I'm going to do is to mark where my sleeve will be starting from. So I'll place my tape on my armhole and I'll mark 4.5. That's where I want my sleeve to start from. Okay. So next, I'm going to cut the sleeve. Now I'll be cutting the two sleeves together. So the length of my sleeve is 7 inches. And because I'll be coming down by 4.5 to fix my sleeve, I'll also be taking that 4.5 measurements at the top of my sleeve. So I'll measure 4.5 this way and I'll mark. Next thing is to take my bicep height. The bicep height I'm working with is 4.5. This is 4.5 here. Then the round bicep I'm working with is 13 inches. Plus the divide by 2 will give me 7.5. Sorry, will give me 6.5 plus 1.5 seam allowance will give me 8 inches. So I'll mark 8 inches here. So I'll be marking the same measurement at the hem part of my sleeve. That is 8 inches here. So the next thing I'm going to do is to connect. So I'll connect this way. I hope you can see the marking. The shock is a bit faint. So this is it. So before I cut, I have to check whether the sleeve will match the armhole. So what I'm going to do now is just to go down by 4.5 and mark, because that's where my sleeve will be starting from. So from that 4.5 mark, I'm going to take my measurements. So what I have here is 6.5. So I want to check whether here this curve on the sleeve is 6.5. Okay, it's 6. So what I'm going to do is to add half to make up, and I'll connect back to the hem part of the sleeve this way. So the next thing I'm going to do is to cut the sleeve out, and I'll use it to cut the second sleeve. So this is my sleeve. Next, I'm going to be cutting the pockets. So the length of the pocket will be 8.5. Will be 8.5. So what I'm going to do is just to place my hand this way, and I'll trace the shape of my hand. So the pocket depth is 10 inches. So I'll cut. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to do is to pipe the back of the gown. That is the opening I have around the neckline. So I'm going to go over to the machine now so I can show you how to do that. So to pipe the opening around the neckline, what I'm going to do is to turn to the wrong side. This is the wrong side of the fabric. Open my bias this way, and I'll place at the top of the opening this way, and I'll sew. I'm sewing on the crease line on the bias tape. So this is it. See, so the next thing I'm going to do is to turn the bias tape to the right side this way. You see, and I will use the bias to cover up the seam this way, and I will sew very close to the edge of the bias. So I'm done piping the opening, as you can see. So I've gone ahead to attach my pockets. And see, I sew like 0.5 inch before I'll close the sides. So the next thing I'm going to do is to hold my shoulder. But before that, then I've gone ahead to sew my button loop. So what I did is just to measure 2 inches, and I folded the bias into two this way, and I sew very close to the edge to form my button loop. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to hem the neckline. I fold in the neckline using the bias. I'll fix my sleeve, join the two sides, and hem the length of the gown, and I'll come back and show you how to fix the ruffle around the sleeve. So I'm done sewing the gown, as you can see. So the next thing I'm going to do is to fix the ruffles around the cuff shoulder. So what I did is just to take my measurement from this shoulder tip. I measured round the top of the sleeve back to the shoulder tip, and whatever I got, I doubled the measurement. So I got 19 inches times 2. So I used that measurement to cut out these long pieces of fabric you are seeing, and the width is 5 inches, unfold is 2.5. So I've gone ahead to run a gather stitches around it. As you can see, is unfold now 2.5, then I run a gather stitches around it. So the next thing I'm going to do is just to pull the gather. Okay, so when I'm done doing that, I'm going to bring the fabric this way, get the midpoint, position it around the shoulder tip this way. So as I will sew round, and my stitches will be facing the right side of the fabric, so that by the time I turn the ruffle up this way, it will hide the stitches. So I'll go to my sewing machine and do that, and I'll come back and show you the finished look. So this is the finished look. The detachable belt length is the double of my waist measurement, and the width is 2 inches on fold. You can see the ruffles around the sleeve, looking so beautiful. And this is the neckline, the button and the loop. You can see the back. So this is the neckline I folded with a bias tape, looking very neat and clean. You can see that the gown is so beautiful. And this is the side pockets. You can see the second one. If you like this video, please go ahead and give me a thumbs up. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in my next video.